1989 is perhaps the most important year in the modern history of Batman, and it's all because of one movie. But it's not just any movie. It is Batman, the first movie about the Dark Knight produced by Warner Brothers and directed by Tim Burton. This movie was not only a box office success, it actually redefined the role of Batman as an American pop culture icon and transformed him into an international sensation. This movie started a new Batmania, similar to what Adam West did in the 60s. The difference is that with this movie, Batman became dark and serious, as he was always supposed to be. For too long, people kept thinking that Batman was that campy guy in the costume because of the 60s TV show. Even though the comics had already returned Batman to his dark nature, the general public still had this idea of Batman. The Batman movie changed this, and people not only realized that Batman was very cool, but that there was an endless amount of Batman stories in the comics. DC Comics had a genius idea. They created a comic book adaptation of the movie, and they gave it away for free to anyone who went to see the movie in theaters. That was a brilliant idea, and it increased the sales of the Batman comics dramatically. However, the comic adaptation is a bit different from the movie. This is actually for two reasons. The first one is because DC Comics was given an early version of the movie, so that they could create the comic and release it simultaneously with the film. This early version of the movie had some minor differences from the final cut, and they are very evident. And second, some things had to be changed because they might have worked in the movie, but not so much in the comic. Anyways, without further ado, let's begin. The first and most notable difference is the Batman's first dialogue. In the movie, this is what he says.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
But in the comic, he says this. Tell your friends, tell all your friends, I am the Knight. In any case, I think both of them are just as good as the other. Next, we have the introduction of Vicky Vale. In the comic, she comes into the newspaper offices, walking down the corridors and leaving everyone speechless as she looks for Knox. In the movie, however, Vicky is already waiting for Knox, and the first shot we see of her are her legs.
Hello, legs.
I don't know what's it about the movie scene, but I actually like the comic version better. The next big difference comes during the party at Wayne Manor. In the movie, Knox and Vicky are looking to get some answers about Batman from Commissioner Gordon, but they can't get anything useful. Moments later, they decide to go into Bruce's private weapons collection. There is no rhyme or reason why they would go into that place, as it clearly doesn't have anything that they might be looking for. However, the comic fixes this by having Commissioner Gordon telling them to go check out that specific room. So once again, the comic does it better. The next scene we have is the reveal of the Joker. In the comic, Jack Napier comes out of the chemicals and goes to have his face fixed, but after the surgery, he finds out his face was completely changed, and we get to see him immediately. This was not good, and the movie did it much better. By not revealing Joker's face right after the surgery, Tim Burton creates mystery and builds up tension towards the actual reveal of the face, which happens shortly afterwards, and it's very dramatic.
You can call me Joker, and as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
The next big change comes after Batman saves Vicky from the Joker at the museum. In the comic, Batman simply takes Vicky to the Batmobile, and in just 5 panels, they are already in the Batcave. Batman has a small dialogue where he explains how the holographic entrance to the Batcave works, because it wouldn't have made any sense if they did it just like in the movie. Now, in the movie, there is a whole chase scene that involves the Batmobile and Joker's henchmen. This is completely ignored in the comic, as well as the scene where we get to see the Batmobile driving to the Batcave through some dark and mysterious roads. It's obvious why this scene didn't make it to the comic, but in the movie it's actually a brilliant way to showcase both the Batmobile as well as the amazing score composed by Danny Elfman. Another striking difference is the transition once the scene in the Batcave is done. In the movie, we only see Batman covering Vicky with his cape, and then we only see Vicky waking up in her apartment. We don't really know what happened, but in the comic, we get a clear view of Batman dosing her with knockout gas. In this case, I think both are effective. The movie version is more dramatic, while the comic version is more realistic. After that, pretty much everything that happens in the movie happens in the comic, although much faster. The next notable difference comes once the Batplane crashes on the stairs of the cathedral. In the movie, we only see Joker taking Vicky to the top of the building, all by himself, whereas in the comic he is followed by 3 of his henchmen. This was included in the comic because writer Dennis O'Neil felt that he needed to explain how the Joker's henchmen got to the bell tower. When you think of it, you realize the movie never explains that, and the thoughts simply appear there, which is rather strange. Now, the most differences between the movie and the comic are actually in the ending. The gadget that Batman uses in the movie to trap Joker's leg is some kind of grappling gun, but in the comic it's a regular batarang. In that same scene, when Batman and Vicky fall from the cathedral, they are left hanging from the batrope on the side of the building. In the comic, they actually break into the place by crashing through one of the windows. Later, when the police finds Joker's body, Commissioner Gordon simply picks up the laughing device from the Joker, but in the comic he explains that it's a laughing box. In the comic, the police also finds Knox hiding under Batman's cape and cowl, and we get to see Batman leaving the place unmasked. This is one of the scenes that was removed from the final cut of the movie. Another scene that was removed, or rather changed, was the final interaction between Vicky and Knox. In the movie, Vicky gives him a cheek kiss, but in the comic this is a more passionate kiss. Again, this is how the movie was supposed to go, but the scene was changed so that Vicky doesn't look so shameless. And finally, the closing shot of the movie is replaced by this amazing splash page by artist Jerry Ordway, who actually did an amazing job of capturing the essence of all the actors and the mood of the movie. Now, there are some notable differences that were not mentioned, and that's because they were simply not included in the comic. The scene where Joker threatens the gangsters to take over their empire and electrocutes one of them with his joy buzzer is not in the comic. And let's not even mention the fact that none of the scenes with Harvey Dent were included in the comic. None of them. Seems very strange considering how much they changed Dent for this movie. Could it be that DC didn't want to have that version of Harvey in the comic? I'm not sure, but it's very odd that none of those scenes were included. In any case, the Batman comic book adaptation, although not completely faithful to the source, it's still a rather good version of the movie. I would say it's 70% accurate in that regard. Now, let's just talk a little bit about the movie. While it's not a perfect adaptation of the Batman mythos, it is the first take on the whole concept that takes everything seriously and makes it look good. The Batman of Tim Burton is very close to the comic book Batman. It also helps that the script written by Sam Hamm reflects the concept of the character very well. This Batman is not as obsessed as the comic book Batman. His romantic relationship with Vicky makes that clear. The comic book Batman wouldn't let that happen. This Batman also endangers many people using his vehicles in many dangerous ways. Granted, these scenes look very cool, it's not something that Batman would do. Michael Keaton's Batman may not be as obsessed as the comic book Batman, but he is just as dedicated and he makes a very good Bruce Wayne, as he would say in his own words.
This is how it is. It's not a perfect world.
Now, the real genius of the film lies upon the fact that Tim Burton connected Batman and the Joker and made them almost exact parallels of each other. Both of them are connected by their origin stories. In the movie, Joe Chill is replaced by Jack Napier as the murderer of the Waynes. This subtle change is perfect, considering that Jack becomes the Joker because of Batman.
You idiot! You made me, remember? You dropped me into that vat of chemicals. That wasn't easy to get over. Don't think that I didn't try.
You killed my parents.
What? Oh.
What are you talking about?
I made you. You made me first.
Batman and the Joker are extremely similar creatures in this movie, two exact freaks. There's even a brilliant moment when both of them enter Vicky's apartment and have the exact same reflection.
It's a nice apartment. Lots of space.
Nice place you've got here. Lots of space.
These are the kind of subtle things that make the story become more poetic.
You are my #1 guy. You are my #1 guy.
It also helps that Tim Burton used many elements from The Killing Joke for inspiration. The duality between Batman and the Joker and even Joker's origin story are all taken from the iconic graphic novel.
Well, bye.
Honey, you'll never believe what happened to me today.
An awful lot of stairs in this place. My feet are killing me.
Jack Nicholson did an excellent job of bringing the gangster and the clownish sides of Joker's personality to the big screen. He is definitely a good Joker. Tim Burton's dark and twisted vision of the world created the perfect atmosphere for The Dark Knight. The Batman movie is an iconic piece of cinema that has created an everlasting impact, and its legacy is still present to this day. The Batman movie changed history. It is because of the Batman movie that Batman the Animated Series was made possible. Without the series there would be no Harley Quinn, and without Harley there wouldn't be a Suicide Squad movie. But that's not all. Without the animated series, the DC Animated Universe, as well as the Arkham video games, would not exist. The superhero blockbusters of Hollywood wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for this film. It all comes down to one single movie. So go ahead, watch the movie, and most importantly, enjoy one of the best Batman movies ever created.